Hello, everybody, and welcome to the belated Monday edition of Moohead Radio. It's Tuesday. I missed it by a day, so go ahead and shoot me. Actually, I was participating in a tennis tournament. It's really the second singles tournament that I've played in the last several years, and trying to get my legs in tennis shape. And I really wasn't feeling up to doing a program, but today I am. So there. Today's program, what would I do if I owned the Cleveland Cavaliers? You know, the thing is funny about this, the tides and fortunes of professional sports franchises comes and goes so quickly that it's remarkable. I should be talking about, well, what would you be doing if you owned the Cleveland Browns? Because the Cleveland Browns are a hapless organization. We started out the year thinking that the Cleveland Cavaliers were going to be in the finals again. And now this massive implosion leads me to this program. What would Mr. Moohead do if he owned the Cleveland Cavaliers? As bizarre as it sounds, that's what we're going to be talking about. First, I want to start out with what made me want to do this program. Brian Windhorst states, and this is a quote, "There is only one LeBron James. When he is gone, he's gone. There is no Cavs world or team that is better without him here. I would do what I can to try to win now while he is here." Brian Windhorst. When I read that, I realized, and I like Brian, and I'm happy for Brian that he's doing well at ESPN. Hopefully he'll be able to keep his job there where others haven't been able to. Let's just hope he doesn't become a victim of ESPN economics. Keep one eye on the stock market, Brian. Here's what I think of what Brian said. Poppycock. All right? Bullshit. First of all, it comes from a perspective that I don't understand. And we'll start with this sentence. There is no Cavs world or team better without him here. In a short sentence, basically, the true Chicken Little instincts of Northeast Ohio. You know, you can take the man out of Northeast Ohio, but you can't take the Northeast Ohio out of the man. This inferiority complex, this apocalyptic notion that somehow things in Northeast Ohio are just horrible and there will never be another ray of light ever again in Cleveland, Ohio, without LeBron James. Well, you know something? I understand why I left Northeast Ohio when I was a young man to go into business. And I know why Brian Windhorst left to go find his fame, fortune, and his passion pursuing sports with a big company like ESPN. But you know something? It's been a long time since I lived in Northeast Ohio, and it's still there. Far as I know, there was no nuclear blast that took it off the map. And there is a Cavs world without LeBron James. People have to understand the way the league is set up. The first thing I would do in talking about this subject is, first of all, I would never own an NBA team because I really honestly don't think the rewards are equal to the expense of the whole ordeal. Because being good is a rarity to be like the San Antonio Spurs to be good for a long period of time. It is against the laws of nature. And the more that the NBA relies upon college players, the more even the impenetrable franchises like the LA Lakers, who were consistent winners, have become also ran losers for many, many years in a row. in the wake of a Kobe Bryant massive signing and then fading away into oblivion. It's not a good business to get involved in. So I never would own an NBA franchise. That would be like the last thing I'd be putting my money into. However, in this specific instance, we are pretending. So in a pretend sense, what would I do? Here's the way I analyze the Cleveland Cavaliers situation. When you got LeBron James back and he signed for X number of years, that's the number of years you had. You can't sit there and say, LeBron's double done us dirty again. You can't, because you knew what the contract was for. And regardless of whether LeBron said, I'm going to stay in Cleveland this time, or if he didn't say anything or whatever, you knew what the bird in hand was. And, you know, as a business person, the bird in hand is the most important thing because, you know, you can look at the fruit on top of the tree, but if you can't get to the top of the tree, you're either waiting for the fruit to fall, at which time it's probably already rotten, or you're not going to get the fruit. There are some realities in business that you have to take into account where you are now. You cannot look in a rearview mirror, and you cannot pretend that things are rosy when they are not. For the Cleveland Cavaliers, we had X number of years contractually for LeBron James, and that's all well and good. 5 glorious LeBron seasons in addition to the 7 that we had him earlier. That's pretty damn good. But it's coming to an end, folks. And if it doesn't come to an end because of LeBron pulling the trigger, it's going to come to an eventual end when LeBron falls over with a bad knee, or LeBron suddenly becomes human and he doesn't get up when he crashes to the floor, or his skills start to erode as he gets older. Look, all things come to an end. If there's no Cavs world or team without LeBron James, then why go on? If Dan Gilbert were to follow Brian Windhorst's logic, he would sell the team, or he would put a gun to his head and kill himself deer hunter style. Seriously. This is no way to analyze the situation. When you're in business, you don't choose the circumstances. You don't choose whether you're in a national recession or a boom period. When you're in business, you don't decide if major employees leave you, if they die. You don't have control over a lot of stuff when you own a business. With the LeBron James thing, you knew how many years you were getting. What did you do to make the team LeBron-proof? Nothing. Nothing at all. LeBron had a no-trade clause in his contract. And I can only assume that LeBron wasn't complaining in the first couple of years when we put together the players that we had. He wasn't pissing and moaning about having Kyrie Irving running at his side or Kevin Love or the other players who ran with him in the earlier years, the first 3 years of his Cavaliers' second run. So obviously there was no problem between management and LeBron James as far as the quality of players up to that point. But, you know, you got to take responsibility. It's easy to point your fingers and say it's LeBron, it's LeBron, it's LeBron. And it is partially LeBron. I understand. He's temperamental and he demands having certain caliber of players beside him. But what did the organization do? Well, I mean, really, to make the final 2 years of LeBron James stay in Cleveland as successful as the first 3? And the answer is not nearly enough. They brought in Mike Longobardi as a defensive guy who doesn't know how to coach the defense. In fact, you know, we don't hear about Longobardi. And the reason we don't hear about him is because in his previous runs with other teams, including the Rockets and the Phoenix Suns, they had no defense. The fact of the matter that Tyronn Lue had to simplify the defense so the players would understand what in the hell they were supposed to do. From the very get-go, the arrival of Mike Longobardi to the Cleveland Cavaliers resulted in a decline of the effectiveness of the defense of this team. And as I've said a gazillion times on the air here, the way Cleveland won games in the past was not by playing 4 quarters of defense. It was each half playing approximately 4 minutes of defense and shutting the opponent down and running up leads and getting cascades of points and runs to trample people and to overrun them. It wasn't running up and down the floor like a bunch of wild banshees, as Tyronn Lue is suggesting. It was shutting down the opposition at pre-prescribed times in the games when their effort would clamp down. But when Longobardi came, all of it changed. And people want to say, well, the game's changed, the tempo's changed. Well, the real reason that the tempo has changed for Cavaliers opponents, believe me, if they could take advantage of the Cavaliers down low in the paint, they would do that. If they can do it in transition, they'll do that. Everyone's running the ball down the floor on the Cavaliers because the Cavaliers aren't playing any defense. And nobody is providing any spark or impetus either in the lineup or on the sideline to get these guys to do what they're supposed to do and what made the team successful in years past. So you can talk about one man all you want, but the fact of the matter is people who were performing at a higher level before, people like Iman Shumpert and J.R. Smith, those people simply aren't trying anymore. And it's obvious that they received their payday, and once they received their payday, they took a big vacay. They took a powder. And then when Longobardi came, I mean, it was like, forget it. We're not even going to bother playing defense, and that's the end of that. So it's not just LeBron James. In fact, it's a whole wide range of things. If you want to point at players specifically, let's start with LeBron James, as with the aforementioned J.R. Smith and Iman Shumpert. But let's also look at guys who are not exactly winners in their careers. Even healthy Isaiah Thomas, not a winner at any real point in his career. Derrick Rose, who trouble and a dark cloud has followed everywhere he's been with absences, injuries, turmoil, starting with the problems that he had in Chicago, problems that he had in New York that have followed him to Cleveland. But these were management's ideas to bring these players in. Just not getting, and then the trade, of course, that went sour, and, we could beat that into the ground. But I'm sure that LeBron James didn't ask for an injured player and Jay Crowder and a G League 7-footer in exchange for his running partner and his all-star. And he didn't ask for that. That was done by the owner of a team who decided that he was going to hire a neophyte. It's a nice word of saying an inexperienced general manager who'd never done the job before. Also, looking at the David Griffin thing, don't believe for a minute what David Griffin says, that David Griffin is so good. David Griffin is not so good. If he were that good, believe me, somebody would have hired him by now. We see people in the chat room. I want to say hi. Stephen Rose, how you doing? Dan Gilbert and LeBron got serious beef, I heard. Well, beef. That's the theme of the show. Beef. Paul Baker saying, I left Strongsville in 1978 for business reasons. And you know something? The fact of the matter is nobody in the world, Paul, would fault you, me, or LeBron James for finding our path in life. But the fact of the matter is that Northeast Ohio just didn't blow away like Gone with the Wind. Stephen Rose is back. Unless Cavs trade for Jordan and Lou Williams, I don't see the Cavs making it to finals. Also because LeBron won't commit, it makes Cavs front office in a difficult position. Why give up assets if he's leaving? let me address that, because I want to address you guys first, because you're the listeners who make the program a viable program. That is the philosophy. If you have the apocalyptic view that there is no future without LeBron James, and we have to, make good now, that if we don't do something dramatic now, the window's permanently closed and we're never going to do anything ever again. All right. Believe me, DeAndre Jordan and his 50% free throw shooting is not going to be an appreciable difference in a team that does not play any defense. The fact of the matter is, if the guards continue to let people penetrate it and play, Olay defense, DeAndre Jordan will foul out in 14 minutes in Cleveland because everybody's going to end up at the rim, and he's going to be forced to enforce. And he is he fouls a lot. Let's be honest. DeAndre Jordan is not a non-contact player. Lou Williams is just another guy that we already had, in essence. A guy who does not play a lick of defense and can come off the bench and score a lot of points. But I don't remember Lou Williams being part of any big, deep playoff run, nor DeAndre Jordan. LeBron's refusal to commit is a thing that you have to account for. And if I owned the Cleveland Cavaliers, I would only accept his silence on the matter based on the fact that he's leaving. And I would do everything that I could do to rebuild my team. Because what happened last time is we got caught in the lurch, and we're going to get caught in a lurch anyway, all right? The Cavaliers are going to be in no man's land no matter what they do because there isn't enough time to rebuild a team. But you have to have a plan of attack. And the plan of attack goes something like this. And I'm bringing this up now because, Stephen is making a point, and it's a point that's being made a lot on social media. And those are the choices. You either get, what was it in Shawshank Redemption? Get busy living or get busy dying. You decide on your course of action and you go for it. Or as Sylvester Stallone would say, go for it. For me, I assume LeBron's refusal is to talk about staying in Cleveland at this point is because he's not going to. And nobody could say that I could be blamed for thinking that if I were the owner of the team. And I would be communicating with him and I'd be saying, something, we've looked at everything and we don't have enough tradable assets at this point in time to make this team great right this moment. We were willing to shell out the coin to you to bring you back. We hope that you will show the good grace of sticking around while we rebuild the team. If you can't do that, we understand, but it's what we're going to do. Dwayne Wade is a one-year piece. That's, and Derrick Rose is a one-year piece. And the fact is that, Derrick Rose, we don't want back. And Isaiah Thomas was a one-year piece from the second the trade was consummated. And I don't even know if he has any NBA basketball left in him. Obviously, these people are not trade chips because nobody wants these players. Nobody wants a 36 going on 37-year-old Dwayne Wade. Nobody is going to want, realistically, a Derrick Rose who causes trouble and will be seen as one of the reasons why the team imploded in Cleveland. And who in the hell really at this point would want any of these players? Isaiah Thomas, who's got a crippling injury and who obviously is injured so severely, he isn't half the player that he was before. So right off the bat, those are your players. And then Jay Crowder has no trade value because, look, he's not done anything. And Kyle Korver is old. He's 36 years old. I like the guy. I like Channing Frye. He's really played a great team ball, and he's excelled. But the fact of the matter is that none of these are pieces that you're going to get anything of real value for. And they're not, as the trade deadline is literally around the corner, teams are not calling us up. Here's number two that we know. And if I'm the owner, I know this. There is a point in time where the sun stops shining on you. I mean, just read the news and, so you already have one guy, Greg Monroe, who's gone to the Celtics, and they're this close to getting Tyreek Evans too, okay? So everybody now wants to go to the other team in the East, all right? They don't want to come to the Cavaliers. So right off the bat, nobody's taking the Cavaliers seriously as a trade partner because all we have to give them in return are bad contracts. money that they don't want to be stuck with. And everybody knows that the Cavaliers are on their way down anyway. Regardless of what LeBron's decision is this time around, this is a team that has grown so long in the tooth in such a relatively short period of time. They're just being outperformed physically and emotionally by younger teams. You cannot be held hostage by a 33-year-old man who's in the midst of the worst month of his career because he's despondent over the fact that he is not going to make a deep playoff run this year. In fact, I have questions as to whether the Cavaliers will make the playoffs. They're only 5 games ahead of the Pistons. And look, some of these teams in the East are going to make deals or have made deals that make them better teams. Sometimes it's like crippling John Wall makes the Wizards a better team. And I told you over and over again on this show that the chemistry on that team was fucked up because Bradley Beal and John Wall could not see eye to eye. Obviously, what we're seeing is that it was more than just Bradley Beal who didn't see eye to eye with John Wall. And sure enough, the team has won 5 games in a row without John Wall. There are teams getting better in the East, and the Cavaliers are not one of them. Consequently, they are not being engaged as a serious trade partner. The only thing you can do, in my estimation, if you're the owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers, is to press forward into what is going to be another stretch of sub-mediocrity. And you've got to set yourself up to get as many draft picks as you can and to find hardworking players who want to bring it every night. We certainly don't have any player that even remotely fits that category starting on this basketball team right now. So, if you're like me as a fan, you're watching this and you don't even really want to watch the Orlando game tonight because on the road, we're going to lose to Orlando and you have this sick feeling. And if you're like me, it's like you start looking for other things to do. You get that squirrely look in your eyes like, I think I had to shine my shoes. Yeah, that's the ticket. Anything to prevent yourself from watching the Cleveland Cavaliers right now because you have a sick feeling in the pit of your stomach that the 6-12 record is going to carry on for the next 18 games as well, and you're not going to get into the playoffs. And then, of course, LeBron will have his reason for leaving. But again, I think all along that was the plan, and I have to believe that that's what his rationale has been. Now, am I telling you that we're going to be a playoff team? No, not next year. No, not the year after. But, if the Minnesota Timberwolves can eventually get around to having a winning record, I think the Cleveland Cavaliers could too. But it's going to require making better decisions than hiring people like Mike Longobardi or hiring people like Kobe Altman or making trades like Kyrie Irving for a bag of broken marbles. It's going to take better decision-making than that. And therein lies the real problem and the real apocalypse for the Cleveland Cavaliers. It isn't that LeBron James holds the future of the area in his hands. No. It's that Dan Gilbert, as an owner, is the one who does, and none of us are very confident with that. So, again, if I own the Cleveland Cavaliers, the one thing that I would do is I would plan for the future because, in my mind, there is very little present and there is no bargaining chip to turn this team around. What I would do is I would get some of these people off my team. I would get Derrick Rose off the team. I would get Isaiah Thomas off the team. I would get Hamlet. That's when I'm starting to call Jay Crowder Hamlet for Shakespearean fans. Get all these self-doubting people the fuck out because they're of no purpose to this team as we head down the road. And even if it means we're going to be wiped out and be a really poor basketball team, I would rather have guys who try. And right now, these guys aren't trying at all. Of course, Paul Baker says after leaving, he still roots for all Cleveland teams. Absolutely. And that's what makes the beauty of it all. Plenty more people in the chat room. Let's see what other people are saying here. Tristan Thompson and Isaiah Thomas trade value went down, so I'm not sure if Clippers would like Jordan, despite his big contract that was exposed. They don't they don't want Tristan Thompson. Well, I mean, the only one that I know that does, his last name is her last name's Kardashian. Unless LeBron commits to one more year, it's risky for the Cavs front office to make trades, and that's it. Well, there's no trade really to be made. Uncle C is in the chat room. The Thompson contract screwed us. Well, you never know when the wheels are going to come off. And Tristan Thompson did serve a purpose in offensive rebounding on this team and the ability to get up and down the floor. The problem is that the rest of the team is so much older than he that the concept of the team changed. And without having a Kyrie Irving, who was a good outside shooting guard, to match other people who could shoot the ball from behind the arc, everything has gotten packed down. And we want Kevin Love to be able to get his looks down low in the post. And Tristan Thompson can't be there with Kevin Love at the same time at the 5. Consequently, Thompson getting hurt, and then the insistence of the coach to play Kevin Love permanently as a 5 and breaking down his body against people who were clearly bigger and stronger than Kevin Love took away part of what made the Cavaliers so successful. Just remember back a short while ago. All the open threes that the Cavaliers made, to the tune of 13, an average of 13 a game, and shooting damn near 40% from three-point range for a season, predicated on Kyrie Irving's ability to penetrate and LeBron James' ability to penetrate. You look at the team today, what the problem with the team is, besides the fact that nobody's trying very hard, LeBron isn't even penetrating anymore. He's settling for mid-range jump shots. He's not going hard to the rack, so there is no kick-out opportunities. The ball movement is stifled, and even if there are open looks, the defense is willing to give open looks to people who are not making them. Jay Crowder and Isaiah Thomas and J.R. Smith are not making wide open threes. And last year and the year before, you couldn't leave Kyrie open on the fringe, behind the three-point line. You couldn't do that with J.R. Smith because he'd knock them down. You couldn't do it with Kevin Love because he would knock him down. The fact of the matter is that when you have guys on the floor, and Tristan Thompson is another one who is not an offensive weapon, what winds up happening is there are men who can go unguarded. So you can put 2 men and eyeball LeBron with 2-3 men wherever he goes. And when LeBron stops going to the hole, then all you have is complete stagnation and runouts, because the reason the transition's killing them, missed threes, long rebounds, and nobody gets back. All right. So the Thompson contract screwed us, but, a lot more. There's a lot more to it than just the simplicity of pointing to one thing. Bronk is saying that Calderon is a better fit with the starting unit than Isaiah Thomas. But, I mean, even at 36 years old, Calderon isn't dragging one of his legs. What can I tell you? Food for thought. What if you could get LeBron to waive his no trade and get what you can for LeBron, and LeBron could agree to sign an additional year to the team in which he goes to? Well, LeBron has already made it clear that he's not going to waive his no trade. And this, again, is the reason why a lot of people are upset with LeBron James, because it's like he's painting Dan Gilbert into a corner, and Dan Gilbert was stupid to allow himself to get in that corner for a second time. There is no mercy in the world of business, and LeBron James likes to lunch with Warren Buffett. He probably sees himself as the ultimate winner, and every transaction has to have a winner and a loser, and you know where all this goes. The bottom line is he's not going to waive that, because that gives the Cavaliers an escape and it lessens LeBron's leverage. And LeBron is the consummate businessman, and he's not going to allow his leverage to be lessened. So that's something that's not even to be considered. This is why for the Cavs to salvage this, they have to give up the Brooklyn pick, which would be a huge mistake. And that's correct. That's the only thing we have right now. And even with that, it's supposed to be a decent draft year coming up. that at least is somebody you can build part of the future around. You give up that pick, you're not going to get anything for the pick. And the reason is teams are not filing in to Cleveland, offering them big name talent in exchange for that number one pick. Right now, they're flying around the Cavaliers and above us like vultures looking to pick at a carcass. So keep the Brooklyn pick and let LeBron go. LeBron does tend to cry a lot. Maybe him going on that 30-minute tirade made his players form a resentment against him. I think that 30-minute tirade that LeBron went on was the start of the worst possible things happening. And when you start referring to people by name as motherfuckers, I think that it doesn't endear you to management either. The Cavaliers are 30-21, and I have a bad feeling they may finish 39-43. You know, the fact of the matter is, losing begets losing, and regardless of what the names are on your roster, it really looks like the team's rather dead in the water. You know, I'm not saying there's not a pulse, but it's a very weak pulse at that. Tony the Calf, that Brooklyn pick is going to have to be a home run prospect if they keep it. And there's no way of knowing that because, again, everything has gone bad and the Nets are doing better than people expected. So there you have it. Things are just not going Dan Gilbert's way. But, you know, think of everything that has gone Dan Gilbert's way. And what I'm going to say now is if I were the owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers, I would, and I told you I would not own a basketball team in the NBA. And Dan Gilbert feels probably somewhat similar because I think he got himself into the Cleveland market. He's got himself casinos and all that good stuff. And that's really the reason he's here. He's a real estate guy. That's the reason he's in Cleveland. He still tweets about his great love for Detroit. He doesn't have a great love for Cleveland, but he has gotten his hooks into the gambling diseased people in the greater Northeast Ohio area, and he's a leech sucking off the blood of the area. I don't like Dan Gilbert, never have liked Dan Gilbert, but the truth is the money-making enterprises are not the Cavaliers. The money-making enterprises was having a great Cavaliers team to bring people downtown so he could open up his goddamn casino. That is the bottom line. Mo Stevenson in the chat room. Don't let the Cavs situation stress you. Just reflect on the championship. Remember the tears of joy and be happy. You, as a Cleveland sports fan, live to see a championship. And that's right, Mo. It's the way I look at it, too, is that this whole apocalyptic view that Brian Windhurst is spouting on Twitter, it belies the fact that you just had the biggest sports moment in 52 years in Northeast Ohio and that you really witnessed a historical thing. And to say that it's never going to happen again is what they were saying all those 52 years. The fact of the matter is, it does always come back around. Sometimes, unfortunately, way slower than we want it to, and sometimes not in one of our lifespans. But the truth of the matter is that life does go on. The sun does rise. We have fond memories, and you don't know when it's going to come back again. And I think most people in Cleveland would be happy post LeBron if we fielded a good enough team in a couple of years to be one of the bottom teams, the 7th or 8th seed in the playoffs. To say that we were at least represented in the playoffs would be, I don't know what would be enough for me, a hardworking team that got in, even though we have no chance to go deep into the playoffs. It would still be a fun story to cover. So I agree with Mo on this, and I disagree completely that there is a total eclipse after LeBron leaves. I just don't want to believe that. Love is the only tradable piece now. And, you know, again, the problem that I see with all of this is that Kevin Love is not a player who is an up and down player in the new up and down league. And teams are going to devalue Kevin Love. I mean, let's be honest. Cleveland fans have devalued Kevin Love. He is a devaluable player because he is not a freak athlete. He's a smart guy, a heady guy, but he's not fast. He doesn't jump that well. And the truth is that any offers that you get for Kevin Love aren't going to be for the types of players who are really going to raise the water tremendously in Cleveland. I agree. He is a chip to trade, but don't expect to get a superstar caliber player in exchange for him, because his role in Cleveland is the number 3 in the big 3 devalued him. That's the way love is and the way life works. Thompson got bit by the Kardashian curse. No, I don't believe that either. That's tabloid fodder. I think he got hit. What got him into that social circle was the big payday that he got. And I think, he's not a drug addict like Lamar Odom, or, not that kind of thing, but he got paid a lot of money and some of the fire left his belly. I think that's a safe way of putting it. Brian Hallman says, right, Bronk, Mar-a-Lago is just such a homeless shelter. Here we go with the political stuff. Oh, come on, you guys. Brian Hallman says, no, Humphreys escaped with his sanity intact. Yeah, I mean, a lot of athletes are going to be targeted by women just because that's where the money is. Tony the Calf says Trae Young would be the guy to get, but even then you need a major lottery, a lucky occurrence. But, Trae Young is still a developing player, and the fact of the matter is that the hype is large, but transferring him into the NBA, not ready to do that yet. Let's see. Stephen Rose is back. If LeBron leaves Cavs for Warriors, do you think his career will be tarnished? I don't think he would go to the Warriors, because that would I think that if he did go to the Warriors, yes. I think that people would say that it was an admission that he was no longer a dominant basketball player. So, but he's not going to the Warriors, so that's just not going to happen. And Tony the Calf, his bunch says so. They'd have to trade Draymond or Clay to make it happen. They're not going to break up the core. And I mean, it's just not a likelihood. If LeBron leaves Cleveland, I really think he goes to Los Angeles, Tony says. But something, the Lakers, Paul George has now made a comment that maybe re-signing with Oklahoma City is not that bad a deal. The Lakers right now are not very good. And they're actually doing a little bit better without Lonzo Ball. So, I mean, again, if you put LeBron in with the players over there, I'm sure they'll be a better team, but they're not going to come out of the West. So, not many teams are going to have much for salary cap, and Tony is suggesting that LeBron would have to take a steep pay cut, and you can cut that off right there, because he, like I said, he's consummate businessman, business first, and I really don't believe that LeBron James would take a pay cut for anybody. Could LeBron go back to Miami, Bronx says? I mean, look, anything in this world is possible. I'm coming home to my second home. I'm coming home. Yeah. Witness again. I don't know. The fact is, the conjecture of where LeBron goes, I really don't care about. You got a business to run. You got a franchise to run. In my estimation, that's more than enough on your plate without having to guess what somebody is going to do, especially somebody who's coy and plays games. This we don't need. LeBron should go to the Spurs. You know something, Stephen? I think in the great scheme of things, playing for Popovich would be a great thing for LeBron, and I could see him doing that. Especially with this whole Kawhi Leonard thing going up in flames in San Antonio. I could seriously see LeBron playing for Popovich. So that's what I can tell you about that. Meanwhile, the press is saying that the Cavaliers are still in the mix for DeAndre Jordan and George Hill. I thought I saw George Hill today. I really don't care about these players, honestly. I don't want to salvage this season. This season is no longer salvageable to me when you have so many players who are, right now, I think there's more addition by subtraction. I got to be honest with you. I think immediately IT's got to go. Immediately Derrick Rose has to go. Those players have to leave. They have to leave. And Iman Shumpert has to leave. I mean, there are just players who did not accept their roles and refused to mold their game in any meaningful way to be part of a winning franchise. You heard all this stuff from Derrick Rose, but he still wants the ball in his hands 100% of the time. The fact of the matter is, and Isaiah Thomas is the same way, he still wants to chuck like he's the only man on the floor. These people are not ever going to change the way they approach the game. They're wrong for the type of team that we want to have in Cleveland. So, all of these players, people are, looking at LeBron's contract here. Look, LeBron's 33 years old. Great basketball player. Yeah. But, the year after, Kawhi Leonard, Jimmy Butler, Kyrie Irving, and Klay Thompson can all technically become free agents. So there's going to be more and more speculation who goes where and why in the next coming few years, not just the LeBron James year. So the Lakers are allegedly trying to get rid of Jordan Clarkson or Julius Randle, if not both of them. However, another meaningful trade going down or about 50-50 on that front. Jordan Clarkson is another guy who's a chucker who can't play a lick of defense. And Julius Randle is kind of a younger Greg Monroe. I don't know really what else to tell you about that. He's a guy who goes to the basket with his left hand and doesn't have a right hand. So there's that. Before I get out of here today, this whole the Super Bowl thing, and it's really funny how people who were talking about the Super Bowl and the NFL in negative terms, and now they're saying, well, the fewer people watched the game, and it was a great game, wasn't it? I mean, it was an entertaining football game, and it had the ending we all wanted. So we can't really complain about the Super Bowl, but still fewer people watched it, and people are still upset for political reasons about the NFL. The story that won't go away right now, Malcolm Butler is refuting rumors that he was tossed out of the Super Bowl, in essence, by Bill Belichick, because as a source in Boston radio at WEEI has stated that possession of marijuana and missing curfew the night before the Super Bowl was the reason that Malcolm Butler didn't play. Bill Belichick, meanwhile, stated for the record it was not disciplinary, and people thought maybe he was trying to protect Malcolm Butler from an embarrassing social episode. But Butler has stated that there is absolutely no truth whatsoever to these rumors. Here's his quote: "During my 4-year career with the Patriots, I've always given it everything I had to play at a high level. Would never do anything to hurt my team's chances of winning a game, including this year's Super Bowl, where I visited with my family every night," he wrote. "During Super Bowl week, I never attended any concerts, missed curfew, or participated in any of the ridiculous activities being reported. They are not only false, but hurtful to me and my family. Although I wish I could have contributed more to help my team win, I have to get ready for the next opportunity. Moving forward, I'll do what I've always done to work hard and prepare for next season, be the best I can be on and off the field." Now, if he's lying and he did not get busted for marijuana possession, or if he's lying and he really missed curfew, because if you miss curfew and are scoring pot on the day before the Super Bowl, you deserve to get benched. You deserve it. I mean, that you've put whatever foolishness in your life ahead of the most important game of the season and what could be the one opportunity for players to win the trophy. We're not talking about Tom Brady. We're talking about other guys who might never play on a Super Bowl team again. However, it is my experience that there are plants in every media that carries teams. Flagship radio stations are big ones. And radio stations like WEEI and big players like that are shills for the Bill Belichick's of the world. Maybe they felt in the aftermath of the team losing the Super Bowl that it was more important to tarnish an African-American athlete than it was. And this is the history of New England, folks. I didn't write this history. They've written it themselves. All right. Maybe it's easier to tarnish somebody than it is to ask the logical questions of why the fuck he wasn't playing. More and more, it appears that Malcolm Butler was having problems during the week leading up to the game, including a health problem, which was probably the flu. And also, from a conceptual perspective, what he was being asked to do as far as coverages, that Bill Belichick decided that a guy who had played 97.8% of all snaps during the regular season defensively was not going to play. And a guy breaking down and crying on the sidelines seems to have just found out what other people seem to already know, that his role was going to be diminished, but it seemed to hit him like a ton of bricks. You know, diminished, right, capabilities. What was it? Diminished skills. We've seen Bill Belichick badmouth veteran players over and over again. It is part of his history. He rolled the dice and he came up empty. He gave up far too much yardage defensively against the Philadelphia Eagles and lost the Super Bowl. If Malcolm Butler had played, would that have changed things? I can't say that. But boy, it sure looks like a bad gamble now, doesn't it? But the real scary part is that this story will blow over and people will just forget about it, as is always the case. But I just want to ask a simple question. If Malcolm Butler was not guilty of what WEEI is accusing him of doing, then don't you think it should be a point of conversation why a player is handled that way? Why a guy is told moments before a game begins that in this big game, he's not going to get a chance? And wouldn't the decision be questioned, even though it was the great Bill Belichick who did it? And wouldn't it be a bigger story as to why the flagship radio station would plant a false story about an athlete to try to take that ray of light off of what appears to have been a bad decision? These are interesting questions. Well, I'm done here, folks. I've done what a moohead always does. Let's see what we have here. Hypothetically speaking, if LeBron told you he would waive his no-trade contract and he is not coming back, would you trade him by trade deadline? If so, what pieces would you get back? Well, again, if he would waive his no-trade, he still can choose where he goes. You're asking a question that is half-baked, because it's not like if we got great pieces from the Sacramento Kings, LeBron ain't going to the Sacramento Kings. And LeBron is only going to go to a team that's already in contention. And a team that's already in contention isn't going to give up pieces that have brought them to contention. So it really, this is all a non-starter to me. I don't care if he waived his no-trade clause or not. Knowing that he was going to be gone at the end of the year, LeBron is devalued because everybody knows he'd be leaving anyway. And at that point, people will see if they can get him on the cheap. The fact of the matter is it the rentable LeBron or is it the long-term LeBron? And nobody's going to give a shit for that. Sorry. And I agree, Collinsworth is a twit. Stephen asked me, I wonder what your thoughts are on players kneeling. Should Roger Goodell force players to stand if ratings continue to drop? This is a no-win situation at this point, and this is the ultimate poisonous fruit from the poison tree. I think that my belief on this is that if people want to say that people stopped watching the NFL because players knelt, and that was an original perspective, the backlash against the players who knelt would contribute to further decay from the other side of the political aisle on this issue. It's a no-win situation. And no matter how many veterans they bring out at midfield and how many guys in prosthetics they put out on the 50-yard line. The fact of the matter is, to allow this to have become, and it's the same thing I said about Papa John Schnatter, to allow these politics to become part of your business and to take some kind of a stand politically when you don't have to is a big fucking mistake. And it costs Papa John a lot of things as far as money, stock value, and pizza sales, and it's costing the NFL in viewership numbers. And there's no way to get it back now because both sides are already antagonized. So it's going to have to be a slow, the Super Bowl was a good start. It was a good game, but it's going to be a slow patching of these numbers. It's not something that's going to happen quickly. You're welcome, Steve. Stephen Rose says, good show today. I love watching your videos. I'm a true MVP. Yeah, chant for Mr. Moohead, right. And Brian Hallman finishes up. Maybe he can chauffeur his Kia K900 around Cleveland for a few shekels. Yeah, I'm quite certain that LeBron James is going to do quite well financially no matter where he goes. Everybody, thanks a lot for tuning in to this edition of Moohead Radio. It was great being back with you again. We'll be back again at the end of the week to see what happens. Cavaliers are coming on in about a half an hour, so I'm going to get this show up on archive, and we'll take it from there. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and until Friday, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Have a good night and a good next couple of days. Bye-bye now.